I think I was the weapon he used to destroy my father, and I think I loved him anyway. God, I hate that I just typed that. I hate that I'm even thinking about him again. But I can't sleep, and I haven't been able to sleep for a while now, and it's like my brain keeps digging up bones I tried to bury years ago. I don't know what I'm hoping to get from writing this. Closure? Forgiveness? Some random stranger on the internet telling me I'm not a complete idiot? Maybe nothing, maybe I just want to finally say it, out loud, or, digitally, whatever. This wasn't supposed to be a love story. I wasn't supposed to feel anything. That was the deal. That was the unspoken contract. Not the one I signed in ink, but the one I signed with my pride. God, I still remember the exact moment I knew I'd sold something I couldn't ever get back. The ink was dry. His signature was neat and cold and practiced, like he'd done this before. Mine looked like a hostage's. Because I was, not literally, obviously. No guns, no chains, just desperation, guilt, a mountain of unpaid hospital bills, and my dad lying there hooked up to tubes after everything went to hell. And then Killian Maddox waltzed in with his custom suits and dead eyes and offered to fix everything. All I had to do was become his fiancée. Temporary, paperwork, publicity, fake smiles, 1 year, no sex, no real emotion. Just headlines, just revenge, except I didn't know that part yet, the revenge part, the me part. I thought I was the fixer, I thought I was doing the fixing, I thought I was saving my father, preserving the last shred of his dignity after the scandal, the charges, the screaming matches, the betrayal. I didn't realize I was the weapon, the sharpest one in Killian Maddox's arsenal. I wish I could say I was completely naive, that I didn't see the red flags, that I had no idea who he was or what he wanted, but I knew who he was. Everyone knew. The media called him the Prince of Retribution, corporate takeover king. Richer than God, colder than ice, a walking headline in a Tom Ford suit. I should have run. But when he looked at me across that sterile hospital room, tilted his head and said, "You want to save him, don't you?" I nodded before I even asked what it would cost me, and now I'm sitting here, 4 years later, typing this like some sort of digital exorcism, because the truth is, I miss him. I miss the man who ruined me, and that makes me the worst kind of fool. I think the first time I really saw him, not on a screen or in a headline, was outside that goddamn courtroom. It was hot, stupidly hot for fall. My blouse was sticking to my back and I'd been crying on and off for like 6 hours, and I remember thinking I should have worn black, not blue, because at least black wouldn't show the sweat or the shame. My father had just been dragged out in handcuffs, reporters were everywhere, cameras flashing, people shouting things, numbers, names, buzzwords that barely made sense to me at the time. Insider trading. Fraud. Vexley deserves prison. And I was just standing there, and Killian Maddox? He was leaning against the wall, still, silent, watching it all like it was a movie. He wasn't shouting, he wasn't smiling, he just stood there with his hands in his pockets like he had all the time in the world, like none of it surprised him, like it was exactly how he'd planned it. And maybe he had. I don't know what it was, the way he didn't blink, the way people moved around him, like the world had agreed he was untouchable. The suit that probably cost more than my dad's entire legal team. The perfect stillness of him while everything else was chaos. But something about him made me stop, made me forget how to breathe. I didn't even know who he was yet. Not really. I knew the name, everyone knew the name, but I didn't know his name, the way he would carve it into my skin without ever touching me. He looked at me, just once. Right as they shoved my dad into the police van, right as my knees almost gave out, his eyes flicked to mine for half a second. I remember it too well, like being measured, scanned, logged, chosen. That's the part one can't forgive myself for, the way it didn't feel like being judged. It felt like being noticed. God, that's so pathetic. I sound pathetic. But I was crumbling, and he looked at me like I was useful, like I was still something, not the fallen daughter of a disgraced CEO, not a sobbing mess on a courthouse step. I remember thinking, maybe he knows something I don't. And maybe he did. Maybe he knew exactly who I was. Maybe that was the moment he decided I'd be the one. I should have looked away. I should have spit at him or cursed or screamed or something, anything. But I just stood there, let him look, let him choose me. And God help me, some part of me let him. I didn't see him again for a while after the courthouse, not in person, anyway, but I started noticing his name. Everywhere, headlines, podcasts, finance blogs I didn't even read before all this. Every time my father's scandal was mentioned, his name was there too. Killian Maddox, the rival CEO, The aggrieved business heir, the man whose father apparently lost everything because of mine. And yeah, sure, I could have made the connection then, I should have. But I was working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on and checking in on my dad every other day while he waited for sentencing. I didn't have time to connect the billionaire dots. All I knew was that the bills kept piling up and the lawyers kept asking for more and my hands wouldn't stop shaking when I opened the mailbox. And then he showed up. At the cafe I worked at on weekends, like he'd just accidentally strolled into a rundown place with flickering lights and sticky menus and teenage servers who barely knew how to spell macchiato. He sat at the back, in the darkest booth, wearing a suit that didn't belong anywhere near people like me. And I felt it again, that noticing, like I was a profile he'd already memorized, like he was waiting for me to recognize something I didn't even know I was supposed to see. I ignored him, I tried to. I pretended I didn't feel his eyes on me while I wiped down counters and faked customer service smiles and tried not to spill milk everywhere because my hands were doing that nervous shaking thing again. He didn't order anything, just waited until my shift ended, until I walked out the back with my coat half buttoned and my backpack slung over one shoulder and my headphones already in. And he was just there, like a ghost, or a decision I hadn't made yet. He didn't smile, didn't say hello, just held out a card, plain, black, matte, no logo, no info, just his name. "Let me help," he said, and the part of me that still had dignity wanted to throw it in his face. Tell him to go to hell. Tell him I didn't need charity from the guy who watched my family fall apart like it was a damn spectator sport, but the rest of me? The part that was already unraveling? I kept it, and 2 days later, I called the number on the back. His assistant picked up, said he was expecting me, told me where to go, what to wear. It wasn't even a dinner, it was a presentation. He laid it out like a pitch deck, clean, clinical, cold, like he was negotiating a merger, not asking a human being to sell herself for a year. Be my fiancée, 1 year, public only, no real intimacy. Full financial support, your father's debts, your apartment, your future, taken care of, in return. You play the role, appearances, dinners, press, no questions, no attachments. You'll be paid well. He said, like that made it better, and I should have said no. I know that now, I knew it even then, honestly, I just didn't care. I was so tired, so numb, so buried in shame and fear and resentment and God knows what else, and some part of me, some absolutely broken, burned out, disgusting part, wanted to be seen again. Even if it was fake, even if it was dangerous. So I looked him dead in the eye and said, okay, and he smiled, just once, like he'd won something. Like I'd given him something. And maybe I had, maybe that was the moment I stopped being a person and started being a plan. Maybe that was the first lie I told that felt good. It wasn't even a ring, not at first. It was a folder, thick, glossy, legal weight paper. My name printed at the top of every page. I remember how heavy it felt in my lap. Like holding my own leash. There was an NDA, of course, a non-disclosure agreement, that basically said if I so much as sneezed the wrong name in public, I'd owe more than my father ever did. Then the engagement contract, 10 pages of terms, clauses, timelines, obligations. I wasn't allowed to gain or lose more than 10 pounds. I wasn't allowed to speak to press directly. I wasn't allowed to have a real relationship with anyone else. There was a dress code, a curfew, a private driver who would ensure consistency. I had to wear the ring during all public events. The one he would have designed, like a prop, like part of my costume. And there was a section, toward the bottom, labeled emotional boundaries. Like that's a thing you can just write out and notarize. It said, no expectation of romantic or sexual intimacy will be implied or enforced. I remember rereading that line over and over. Like I was waiting for the fine print to jump out and strangle me. Killian sat across from me the entire time, perfect posture. One ankle resting on his knee, cufflinks, stillness. He didn't explain anything, didn't ask if I had questions, didn't even pretend to soften it, just waited. And I think I smiled. God, I don't know why, some twisted, self-protecting part of me needed to act fine, to pretend I was making a smart choice, to make it feel like a choice at all. So I said something stupid. I said, you make a compelling pitch, and he actually smirked, just a flicker. But it felt like he'd scored a point. I signed, every page, initials, full name, date. The pen was heavy and expensive and I kept gripping it too hard. My fingers hurt afterward. I had to shake them out in the elevator. I told myself I was being strategic. I told myself I was leveraging his ego, his money, his name. I told myself this was power. that I was in control. But looking back now, I think the second I signed that paper, I stopped being a person to him, or maybe I never was. He didn't even show me around. The driver took me straight there from the signing, still in the clothes I wore to make it look like I belonged in his world, which I didn't, not even close. Everything itched, everything reeked of someone else's money. The elevator opened right into it, no hallway, no knocking, just doors sliding open into glass and silence, and this view that felt more like a threat than a perk. The whole city was just there, laid out beneath me like something he owned, like something he'd already won. I stood there, holding my one suitcase like an idiot, like some lost intern who wandered into the wrong movie set. I don't know what I was expecting. A welcome basket? A note? Maybe him, pretending to be warm or human for 5 seconds? But the place was empty, spotless, choking on money, white marble floors, too cold under my shoes, walls that looked like they cost more than my dad's bail, furniture that barely looked sat on, and a kitchen that felt staged, like it had never been used, like food wasn't necessary here. There was one toothbrush already in the holder, sleek, black, like it was designed by a weapons manufacturer. Mine was white and cheap and looked like a joke next to his. He'd already made space for it, for me. In the medicine cabinet, there was a brand new pack of my favorite face wipes, same brand, same scent. How the hell did he know that? A closet already had dresses in my size, drawers with lingerie still folded and tagged. It was like someone built a very expensive dollhouse and just dropped me inside it, not asked, not welcomed, just placed, and it didn't feel romantic or glamorous or safe. It felt like I'd been gift wrapped for him and left on display. I remember walking to the window and pressing my hand to the glass. It was cold, everything was too perfect, too quiet, too curated. I kept thinking, this isn't real. This isn't mine, none of this is mine. But it was. I signed the papers, I let it be. I moved in. There was a room for me. Your room, the assistant had said. But of course it was 2 doors down from his. Of course the walls were thin. Of course I couldn't sleep. I laid in that bed with 5 pillows and Egyptian cotton sheets and felt like I was floating in a museum, like I'd been bought and shelved. And all I could think about was the toothbrush, sitting next to his, like we were already some kind of couple, like I belonged there, like I chose it, and I guess I did. The first event was a gala, because of course it was, not a dinner, not a cocktail hour, not a brunch where I could blend in with mimosas and fake smiles. No, it was a full-blown, red carpet, paparazzi-infested, magazine-covered fucking gala. I didn't even know what it was for. Cancer? Art? Tax write-offs disguised as charity? I didn't ask. I was too busy trying not to pass out when they brought the dress. It came in a white garment bag, hung on a rolling rack like it was sacred. I didn't pick it. I didn't even see the tag. Someone somewhere just decided that this deep emerald silk thing that dripped off my body like water would make me look like the kind of woman who belonged beside Killian Maddox. It was backless, of course it was, tight at the waist. Slit so high I was scared to sit down. I stood in front of the mirror for a long time, just staring, not at how I looked, at how I didn't look like me. I looked like a version of myself I didn't trust. And then he came in. Didn't knock, just walked in like it was his mirror, his dress, his body standing in front of it. He didn't compliment me, didn't even pause, just looked me up and down once and said, "Don't talk too much tonight, smile, stay close, you're mine tonight." Just like that, like I was a watch he'd picked to match his suit. I should have said something, should have snapped. But my mouth didn't work and my stomach was already in knots and all I could think was, God, he smells expensive. The car ride was silent, the carpet was blinding, the flashes were like bullets, and the moment we stepped into that ballroom, I felt like a crash test dummy on display. Everyone looked at me, no, at us, but mostly at him. And the women, God, the women, they dripped diamonds and fake concern and perfectly manufactured laughter. They touched his arm like I wasn't there. They leaned in too close, whispered things they wanted him to hear. Didn't even look at me, like I was invisible, like I was temporary, like they knew he wasn't really mine. And he didn't stop them, didn't flinch, didn't even pretend to care, except when I tried to step away once, to get a drink, to breathe, to exist. His hand slid around my waist and pulled me back, not gently. He leaned down, lips almost touching my ear, and said again, lower this time, like a warning, "You're mine tonight." And I felt it, God help me, I felt it, not fear, not revulsion, possession. And something in me liked it. That's the worst part, that's the part one don't know how to explain. because I didn't want to be owned, but for one tiny, awful second, I wanted to be his. It was raining, I remember that because the whole penthouse felt gray, like the sky had dripped into the walls, everything quiet, no meetings, no events, no Killian, and that meant I could breathe for 5 seconds. I wasn't snooping, I didn't even mean to open the door to his study. I thought it was just another closet, half the place was doors anyway, cold, sleek, unlabeled, like secrets dressed as architecture. But the door was unlocked, and I walked in. It was clean, of course it was, but not unused. There were signs of him everywhere. His watch box, a half-drunk glass of something amber on the side table, a leather-bound notebook opened halfway with notes I couldn't make myself read. The air smelled like cedar and cologne and whatever it was that stuck to him when he came back from deals. Expensive tension. I don't know what drew me to the shelves. I think I just wanted to see something human, and that's when I saw the photo. It wasn't framed, not on display, just tucked between 2 massive hardcover books like it got shoved there fast, forgotten, maybe, or hidden. I almost didn't recognize him, Killian's father. I'd only ever seen him in black and white financial magazines and scandal headlines, but there he was, smiling, actually smiling, and next to him, my father, smiling too, younger, sharper, suits tailored like they ruled the world, shaking hands, looking like friends, like partners, like the whole fucking sky hadn't fallen yet. My heart dropped. I actually felt it, that sudden, stupid thud of what the hell is this? I remember staring at it like it was cursed, like touching it would burn me. My brain started doing gymnastics. Maybe it was a business deal, maybe it was charity, maybe my dad helped him, maybe they were just at the same event and, no. Their faces, their body language, the grip, it wasn't random, it was history I never knew. I slid the photo back between the books and backed out of the room like it could hear me thinking too loud. I didn't ask Killian about it. I don't know why. Maybe because I already knew the answer, or maybe because I didn't want to know what it would cost to hear him say it. And maybe that was the first time I really, truly wondered. What if I was never part of the plan? What if I was the plan? It was late, one of those charity things again. Another rooftop cocktail hour filled with fake concern and expensive dresses and men who shook Killian's hand too hard like they were trying to prove they weren't afraid of him. I had on heels that dug into the softest part of my foot, a smile that didn't fit my face, and a laugh that wasn't mine, sharp and polite and hollow. I didn't even drink that night. I just shut down. I stood there like a good doll and nodded and posed and stayed close enough to look claimed but not close enough to seem real. And when it was over, when the flashbulbs died and the small talk stopped and Killian finally led me back to the car, something in me snapped, quietly, silently, like a frayed wire finally letting go. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember the hum of the car and the blur of lights outside the window and the way my body melted into the leather seat like I didn't have bones anymore. I was too tired to pretend, too tired to stay stiff and watchful and controlled. And for a second, I forgot who I was supposed to be, and then I felt it. Something warm, heavy, draped across my shoulders. His jacket. I didn't open my eyes. I couldn't. I didn't want to see his face. I didn't want to know what kind of expression he wore when no one was watching. I just stayed still. Pretended I was still asleep. Because if I moved, if I reacted, it would be real. It would mean something. And it couldn't mean anything. That was the deal. That was the rule. No real emotions, no attachments, just headlines, just appearances, just the contract. But it was warm, and it smelled like him, and for the first time since signing that deal, I didn't feel like a prop. I felt like, I don't know, something breakable, and that scared the hell out of me. Because I'd convinced myself I could do this. I could wear the dress, I could say the lines. I could sleep in a stranger's penthouse and live someone else's life and not feel a damn thing. But that stupid jacket, that tiny, quiet moment. It slipped past every wall I built, and I just laid there, pretending I was asleep, pretending I didn't notice, pretending it didn't feel like something I could get used to. God, I shouldn't have let it feel like that. I woke up to a headline, not an alarm, not a text, not his voice in the kitchen making that god-awful protein shake. Just a headline. Killian Maddox spotted leaving private dinner with ex-fiancée Aurelia Voss. There was a picture, of course there was, him, her, the car door open, his hand on the small of her back, and that look on her face, smug, a little possessive, a little like she knew. I just sat there on the edge of his bed, still wearing his t-shirt, God, the irony, and stared at it, like if I looked long enough the pixels would rearrange themselves and it would all disappear. but they didn't, and it didn't. Aurelia. Of course her name was Aurelia. Of course she looked like she was carved out of old money and yacht smoke and couture, blonde, thin. Legs for miles, like someone who'd never had to clean up anyone else's mess but knew how to smile while someone else did. I didn't even know he had an ex-fiancée, that word, ex-fiancée, like a shadow crawling into the space I thought I was pretending to fill. I didn't say anything when he came home. He walked in like the world hadn't exploded online, loosened his tie, kissed my cheek absently, like I was a habit, not a person, and asked if I wanted breakfast. I said no, sat there on the bar stool like a statue while he fried eggs, like nothing happened, like we were fine. And I hated it. I hated how good he looked doing normal things. I hated how calm he was. I hated that I didn't scream when I finally asked, soft, so soft it felt like a betrayal to even say it. Was it real? He didn't flinch, didn't even pause, just said, she's the past, this is business, don't confuse the two, like that answered anything, like I wasn't choking on everything between the lines. She's the past, cool, great, then why did his hand look so familiar on her back? Why did she look so comfortable next to him? Why didn't he tell me about her before the internet did? And why did it hurt? It shouldn't have hurt. This isn't real. This isn't a relationship. I'm not his girlfriend. I'm not his anything. But that night I wore his shirt to sleep. That morning he made me coffee the way I like it. That one time, when I got sick, he canceled a meeting to sit with me on the bathroom floor until the fever broke. And now I don't know what's real. I don't know if any of it is. I keep looking at her and thinking, he loved her once. I don't know if I can even imagine what that looked like. But I know what it feels like to see someone walk through a room like they still have keys to a part of him I've never even been invited to. And I hate that I care. I hate that it cracked something open in me. This was supposed to be simple, pretend, smile, get paid, get out. But I'm standing in the middle of someone else's leftover love story. And I don't know if I'm the new chapter or just the epilogue. It was raining again. Of course it was, like the sky knew something had to crack open that night, like it wanted to drown me out before I said the thing I couldn't unsay. The event was brutal, long, loud, glittering. One of those nights where everyone's perfume mixes with ego and champagne and I start forgetting where my skin ends. I don't even remember what triggered it. Some investor said something slimy about how Killian finally upgraded, and he just laughed, didn't correct it, didn't say a thing. And I smiled. I always smile, that's what I do, right? Smile, nod, hold his arm like I'm not dying inside. But in the car on the way home, I cracked. I said something, not even smart or sharp, just small and sharp-edged and stupid, something like, do I embarrass you? He didn't answer at first. Just stared out the window like the city was more interesting than me unraveling beside him. So I pushed. I don't even remember the exact words. They came out of me fast and ugly, like steam from a pressure valve no one noticed. I told him I hated the way he looked through me in public. I told him I wasn't some accessory he could take on and off when it suited him. I told him I wasn't a fucking coat. And then I said it. Why do you even care if I embarrass you? This isn't real, remember? He looked at me then, not like he was angry, not like he was calm, like he was deciding something. The car stopped. I didn't realize we were already at the building. I moved to get out and he grabbed my wrist, not hard, just enough. Say it again, he said, quiet, flat, and I did, because I'm stupid, because I wanted him to hurt the way I hurt, because I wanted to win, even though I didn't know what we were fighting for. It's not real, I whispered, and then he kissed me, not soft, not romantic, not like in movies, hard, fast, brutal, like a punishment, like a question, like he wanted to shut me up with his mouth and drown every word I'd ever said. And the worst part? I kissed him back. I kissed him back like I'd been starving for it, like I needed it, like it was the first thing all month that made me feel like I wasn't faking everything. I don't know who pulled away first, maybe we both did. I just remember the heat between us, too close, too much, and the air suddenly gone. He didn't say a word, didn't explain, just left. He walked into the elevator, pressed the button, and left me standing there with lipstick on my teeth and my chest heaving and my heart somewhere between my stomach and the floor. And then he disappeared. For 3 days. No calls, no texts, nothing. I didn't know if he was alive or if I'd broken the contract or if that was what he wanted all along. Some twisted way to pull me under and disappear before I could breathe again. And me? I stayed. Like an idiot, I didn't leave, I didn't scream, I didn't undo the deal. I stayed, and I waited, because part of me, the worst part, thought maybe he kissed me because he meant it, and that part of me deserved to break. It was a fundraiser, one of those shiny, smug ones with too many forks at dinner and not enough food on the plate. I wore a dress that didn't feel like mine, strapless, stiff, probably worth more than what my dad owed before Killian ever stepped into my life. Killian looked like money, that's how he always looked, crisp black suit, jaw sharper than his smile. You'd never know he was the kind of man who could destroy someone without even raising his voice. We were seated at one of those front tables, close to the stage, close to the people who matter, close enough for people to whisper when they thought you couldn't hear. Except I could, I did. I heard her voice before I saw her, one of those legacy wives. You know the type, hair too perfect, lips too plumped. Smile like a blade. She leaned toward her friend but loud enough for it to carry. Isn't she the girl whose father got indicted for embezzlement or something? How charming, a Cinderella story with wire fraud. And they laughed, like it was funny, like my whole life falling apart was just dinner party material. I froze, my stomach dropped in that sick, slow way it does when your body knows before your brain does that you're about to cry in public. I looked at Killian, waiting for, I don't even know, a shrug, a smirk, maybe just silence. But he stood, pushed his chair back, slowly, deliberately, and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, she's under my protection. Just that, simple, cold, final. The laughter stopped. Their faces, God, I wish I had a picture, were just frozen, like someone had slapped them with a diamond. He didn't look at me, not at first, just sat back down, picked up his glass, and sipped like he hadn't just flipped the entire mood of the table. And I couldn't breathe. I wanted to crawl under the floor and evaporate. I wanted to run out screaming, but also, I wanted to grab his face and kiss him, hard, like maybe that would explain all the everything crawling under my skin. Because for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I didn't feel like a transaction. I didn't feel like a pawn. I didn't feel like the girl with the dirty last name and the debt she could never pay off. I felt safe, which is so stupid. I shouldn't have felt safe, not with him, not when he was still hiding everything, not when I still didn't know the full truth. But that night, I let it happen. I let myself imagine that maybe this wasn't just about revenge, that maybe he wanted me there, beside him, not just as a piece in his game, but as something else. I let the fantasy win. I let it crawl into my chest and settle there like it had always belonged. I think that was when I started to love him. God help me. He called me out of nowhere. No. Hi, no, how are you? Just, he's using you. Like I didn't already know. Like I hadn't already felt it crawling under my skin every time Killian kissed me too softly or said my name like it meant something. But still, hearing my father say it out loud made it worse. Made it real in a way I wasn't ready for. I don't know what you think this is, he said, voice hoarse from too many years of shouting into silence. But it's not love. It's leverage, leverage. That word made me want to scream. Because yeah, maybe he wasn't wrong. But also, fuck him. Because where was all this righteous concern when he was the one making deals with devils? Where was this warning when I was 17 and sobbing in the back seat of a repoed car while he talked it out with some man who smelled like blood and cigars? Now he wanted to play protector. Now I was supposed to listen. I remember gripping the phone so hard my fingers went numb. Why do you even care? I asked him, low and flat and mean. You sold us out long before Killian ever showed up. Silence. Then, don't let him turn you into something you're not, Reina. I almost laughed, like it was still a choice, like I hadn't already signed the contract, worn the ring, posed for the cameras, faked the orgasms, like there was still a version of me worth saving. I think I hung up on him, or maybe he hung up on me, I can't remember. What I do remember is pacing the penthouse for an hour, hating everything, the glass walls, the too soft rug under my feet, the echo of silence that always came after Killian left. And the worst part? The part one still choke on? I didn't leave. I didn't even think about leaving. I stayed. I chose him, chose the lie, chose the man who was maybe, probably, using me, over the man who had raised me. Even if he raised me badly, even if he broke more than he built. Blood is blood. But I didn't bleed for my father. I bled for Killian, and I think that says everything. It was his birthday. I remember because I spent 6 hours trying to look like the kind of woman who belonged on his arm, not beautiful, not elegant, not perfect, just expensive, like I could be part of the scenery in those stupid ballroom events he hated but still always showed up for. The dress was satin, the color of wine, deep red like danger, or warning signs, or lipstick on the wrong collar, and he looked at me like, God, like I was the gift, like I was something he wanted. and for 1 second, I forgot the contract. Forgot the fake kisses and the NDA and the way my father's name still sat like rot in his mouth. I forgot everything. Except the way he held my hand in front of everyone like it meant something. People smiled, took pictures, whispered, the kind of party where the smiles are too white and the lies smell like champagne. I kept thinking, maybe we're okay, maybe this is something. I was so fucking stupid. It was around midnight. I went looking for the bathroom and ended up in the wrong hallway. Too many doors, too much marble, not enough signs. That's when I heard it. Voices, muffled, but loud enough. His assistant, that little prick who always looked at me like I was a blemish on Killian's otherwise perfect resume, and Killian, his voice low, clipped, like he didn't want to be heard but didn't care enough to lower it all the way. She's part of the plan. She was always the plan. I stopped breathing, like actually. I pressed myself flat against the wall, my heart pounding so loud I swore they'd hear it thudding through the drywall. His assistant said something back. I didn't catch it, and Killian just laughed. That laugh, that cold, quiet, corporate laugh, the one he used in boardrooms and interviews, the one that meant nothing. She was always the plan. The words circled in my head like vultures, picking apart everything, every kiss, every look, every goddamn moment I thought was real. And the worst part? I didn't burst in, I didn't scream, I didn't throw a drink in his face or break the glass in my hand or confront him like a woman with a spine. I turned around, walked back down that hallway, smiled at a stranger who complimented my dress, let him twirl me in front of Killian like nothing was wrong. I pretended, because I didn't want the humiliation to reach my face, because I didn't want to give them the satisfaction, because I still, somehow, loved him. I smiled, laughed, told him happy birthday, and all the while, I kept hearing it, over and over again. She was always the plan, and I think that's when something inside me cracked. Not all the way, not yet, but it started. That was the night I started bleeding on the inside, and I haven't really stopped. It took me 3 days to ask. 3 whole days of pretending I didn't hear it, didn't feel it rip through me like broken glass. 3 days of smiling when I felt like screaming. 3 nights of lying next to him in that massive, empty bed, his arm over my waist, his breath steady. Mine anything but. I kept replaying it, his voice, that sentence, she was always the plan, and still, I couldn't ask right away, because part of me, the part that still wanted to believe in fairy tales and reformed villains and contracts that turned into love, that part hoped I'd imagined it, misheard, misunderstood. Maybe it was about something else, maybe it wasn't about me. God, I hate how badly I needed that to be true. I asked him on the 4th morning, we were having coffee, that stupid French press thing he insisted on using, like boiling water made him less cold. He was scrolling through emails, I was staring at his hands. And I just blurted it out, not smooth, not planned, just, what did you mean when you told your assistant I was always the plan? His thumb paused, just for a second, then he set his phone down, folded his hands like he was preparing for a negotiation, not a conversation, not an apology, a strategy. He looked at me and said, and I will never forget this. You were, at first, but not like that. It was business, Reina, but you're more than that now. I should have left, right then, right there. Because he didn't deny it, he didn't even try, he just shifted it, repackaged it in prettier words and a softened tone, like I was supposed to feel grateful that he'd upgraded me from pawn to queen, like I was supposed to be flattered that the plan had evolved into feelings. I think I nodded, or maybe I said, okay, I don't know. My ears were ringing. My throat burned like I'd swallowed acid. He reached for my hand across the table. I let him take it, because I didn't want to lose him, because I wanted him to be telling the truth. Because I needed this whole thing to still be something I could survive. That's the thing they don't tell you, sometimes. It's not the lie that breaks you, it's the hope that they might still be telling the truth. I looked at him and told myself, he's trying, he cares. He could have denied it and he didn't. That means something, right? Right? I'm so good at lying to myself, it's disgusting. I wanted to believe him more than I wanted the truth, and so I did. And that's how the worst betrayals happen, not in the screaming, not in the fights, but in the quiet moments when we choose the pretty version of the story, even when it's killing us. I should have walked away, I should have burned it all down, but instead I poured him another cup of coffee, and smiled, like an idiot. It wasn't some grand moment, no fireworks, no music swelling, no stupid photographer hiding behind a fern waiting to capture my fake surprise. It was raining, not the soft, romantic kind, the gross kind, gray and heavy, the kind that feels like the sky is pressing down on your chest just for fun. I remember I was cold, not because of the rain. We were inside, but because he had just told me we weren't going to the gala that night, and I had spent 2 hours getting ready, full gown, heels that hurt, hair pinned so tight I could feel it in my skull, all for nothing, or maybe not. He was standing in front of the fireplace like some tragic prince out of a gothic novel, jacket off, tie loose, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows like he was trying to prove something. I remember thinking, he looks tired, not physically, soul tired, like maybe he hated himself a little less when he was with me, which is messed up, because I was starting to hate myself more. He didn't get down on one knee, didn't even move, just looked at me, eyes sharp, voice soft, and said, "Let's make it real." That's it, no ring, no question, just a declaration like he was already sure I'd agree. And the worst part? I did. I stood there, in that damn gown, mascara already smudging under my eyes, heart a confused tangle of hope and dread, and I nodded, like a coward, because some sick part of me wanted it to be real, wanted the second proposal to fix the first one, wanted to believe he wasn't lying this time, because it was just us. No cameras, no contract on the table, just me, him, and the stupid rain tapping on the windows like a heartbeat. I remember whispering, "Okay," so small, like if I said it too loud, it would shatter. And he smiled, not the press smile, not the cold one, a real one, the kind that hurts to remember now. I don't know what I was hoping for, maybe that if we pretended hard enough, it would become real. Maybe that the lie could transform into love if I just held on long enough. But deep down, I think I knew, even then, even in that moment, that love born from revenge is just another kind of war, and I was already bleeding. It was raining again. Of course it was, because apparently every moment that ruined me had to come with a goddamn weather metaphor. I didn't mean for it to happen, I swear to God, I didn't. We were supposed to be at that stupid benefit dinner. He had a new suit laid out. I had this emerald dress he'd sent me days before, tag still on, price hidden like that made it less obscene, but he cancelled, again, no reason, just looked at me with those quiet eyes and said, "Let's stay in," like it was the easiest thing in the world, like he didn't know what staying in with him did to me, and I should have walked away. I should have changed back into sweats and gone to bed and buried myself in Netflix and lies. But I didn't. I poured wine. We sat on the couch. He took off his jacket, rolled his sleeves. That ritual again, always with the sleeves, like peeling back layers of armor, but never the last one. We didn't talk much, just silences that buzzed like broken wires. He asked me if I was happy. I laughed. He didn't. He looked at me like I was already half gone, and then, God, then he touched my face, just a hand to my cheek, so soft, so careful, like I was made of glass and he was scared to crack me but couldn't help trying anyway. I think I leaned into it. I don't know. It felt like gravity. There was no big kiss, no dramatic undressing, just skin and heat. And his breath on my neck like an apology he didn't have the words for. He whispered my name like it hurt to say it, like he didn't deserve to. And for a second, just one awful, perfect second, it felt real, it felt real. I forgot the contract, I forgot the lies. I forgot my father and the money and every reason this should have been a nightmare. I wanted him to love me. I needed it like oxygen. Even if it was just for one night, even if I had to pretend. It wasn't soft, it wasn't slow, it was desperate and raw, and like we were trying to erase something between us that wouldn't die. He kissed me like he was drowning. I kissed him like I wanted to. And when it was over, I curled into his chest and pretended he didn't flinch. Pretended I didn't feel the way his arms froze for half a second before he held me like he meant it. I gave him everything that night. My body, my guard, my silence. He gave me nothing. He was never mine, not really, not even when he was inside me, whispering that I felt like home, and I think, no, I know. That's the night I stopped pretending I'd make it out of this hole. It wasn't even hidden. That's what gets me the most. It wasn't locked away in some safe, or shredded, or buried under passwords and layers. It was in his desk drawer, top drawer, like it was nothing, like I was nothing, like the whole goddamn plan wasn't worth hiding anymore. I wasn't snooping, not really. He'd asked me to grab a file, something for a meeting, I don't even remember what, something about a merger, or a board vote, or whatever rich people pretend is urgent. So I went to his office, I opened the drawer, I saw my name. That's it, that's all it took. One manila folder with my name on the tab in bold black ink, like I was just another asset, like a file labeled Vexley, Reina, belonged alongside balance sheets and acquisition memos. I don't know how long I stood there before I opened it. It felt like my body left the room, like I was watching someone else. This idiot girl with shaking hands and a heartbeat in her throat flipped through pages like her world wasn't about to disintegrate. The contract was in there, our contract, the fake engagement, the NDA, the clause about public appearances, but not the version I signed. This one was older, dated 2 weeks before I even met him, and there were notes, margins filled with scribbles in that perfect, sharp handwriting of his. Target. R. Vexley, emotional leverage, father, media control, favor. From Arias, my photo was stapled to the back page, not the one from my modeling portfolio, not something pulled from my socials. This one was grainy, like it had been taken without me knowing. I think it was outside the courthouse. I'm in a red coat, crying. He saw me falling apart and thought, perfect. I sat on the floor, right there, between his marble desk and that cold glass wall that overlooks the city like some villain's lair. And I read every single page. It wasn't revenge on my father, it was revenge through me. I was the bridge, I was the knife. He studied me like I was a puzzle. He built me, crafted the version of me he needed. Helpless, grateful, groomed for guilt. I was never the exception, I was the execution. And the worst part? The actual worst part? Some tiny, broken part of me still loved him, even as I sat there choking on betrayal, surrounded by proof that I was nothing more than a move on his chessboard. I wanted to scream, I wanted to burn it all. But all I did was cry, silently, violently, into a folder that spelled out my own fucking destruction. He came home hours later. I didn't say a word. I just put the folder back in the drawer, closed it, smiled, and kissed him like I didn't already know. I didn't even take everything, not the heels he bought me, not the gold necklace I once thought was a birthday gift but probably came with strings I never noticed, not even the stupid toothbrush I left beside his in that perfectly staged bathroom. Just a duffel bag, half-zipped, phone off. I didn't cry, which almost scares me more than if I had. There's something terrifying about silence, about moving on autopilot, folding underwear while your entire fucking world burns behind your ribs. I waited until he left, meeting in the city, assistant calling, same smooth script. I won't be long. He lied. Of course he lied. And then I ran. I called a cab, not the driver we used. Not the sleek black car with the tinted windows and the smell of money, no, a normal one, peeling seats, cheap radio static. The kind of cab I used to take before I knew how suffocating silk could feel. The driver asked if I was okay. I said yes. My voice didn't shake, so maybe I'm a better liar than I thought. I left my phone in the back seat, let it slip between the cushions and didn't look back. I didn't want him to find me, and I knew he would. If I gave him even a pixel of me, he'd find it, twist it, use it, like he always did. I got on a bus heading nowhere, doesn't matter where, some town with a name like something you'd say through a sigh. I sat in the back, hoodie up, breathing like each inhale was a betrayal to the girl who signed that contract. It wasn't leaving a lover, it wasn't heartbreak, it was survival. He knew everything about me, he made sure of it. He mapped my grief like a cartographer. He used my father, my fear, my hunger. He turned me into a character in his story. The stupid girl who'd fall for the villain and thank him for it. But I am not a story, and I was never his. I didn't leave to hurt him. I left because I couldn't breathe, because I couldn't sleep beside someone who looked at me like prey and whispered love like it was mercy. And maybe I should have left a note, or screamed, or burned the penthouse down. But I didn't. I just slipped out the door, like a secret, like a ghost, like the silence I'd been swallowing for months finally learned how to walk. And I know he looked for me, I know he searched. Because monsters always chase what they think they own. But I was done being his, even if I had to disappear to prove it. God help me. I never planned to come back. It sat in my inbox for days. I saw the little red dot on the burner phone I bought from a gas station with crumpled bills. I ignored it, listened to it blink at me every morning like a dare, like it was mocking me. You're not done with him. You're still his. I told myself I didn't care, that I wouldn't listen, that whatever he had to say, I already knew the shape of it. Control, manipulation, guilt. He'd say I was overreacting. He'd say I misunderstood. He'd say whatever it took to pull me back in. And maybe I would have stayed strong. Maybe I would have deleted it. But it was 2:17 a.m., and the radiator in my studio was clanging like it was falling apart, and I hadn't eaten in almost a day. Unless you count black coffee and a handful of stale cereal, and everything in me was tired, just wrecked. So I pressed play. Stupid girl, I pressed play. Reina, His voice was different, not smooth, not sharp, wrecked, like he hadn't slept, like maybe he'd cried, but maybe that's just what I wanted to hear, maybe I imagined it, I didn't know what to say, I still don't. I've started this message 100 times and every version of it sounds like bullshit. You're right, Killian, it does. You weren't supposed to matter. My stomach dropped. Like an elevator cable snapping clean through. You weren't supposed to matter and you ruined everything, and that, God, that almost killed me. Because it wasn't cruel, not in the way you think. It wasn't a threat, or a punishment, or a way to drag me back. It was broken, gutted. You ruined everything, he said like a prayer, like a man standing in the rubble of a house he burned down with his own hands, staring at the ashes like, how did this happen? And maybe I'm sick. But, I rewound that part, over and over, just that one line, you ruined everything. Because in his world, in that cold machine he called a plan, I was a variable, a flaw, love wasn't supposed to happen, not with me, not to him, and hearing that he unraveled too, that he didn't come out clean, untouched, victorious, it shouldn't have mattered, but it did. I wanted to scream, I wanted to throw the phone into traffic, instead, I sat on my mattress on the floor and cried into a hoodie that still smelled like his cologne. Yeah, I kept it, bite me, he never said sorry, not once in that voicemail, he never begged, he never promised to change, all he said was that I ruined it, and for a second, I felt proud of that, and then I felt empty, so goddamn empty, because love shouldn't feel like collateral damage, it shouldn't come in voicemails laced with regret and ego and almosts. It shouldn't leave you wondering if being the exception means anything when you were never supposed to exist in the first place. I didn't reply, didn't call him back, didn't block him either. I just let the silence settle again, like maybe if I stayed quiet long enough, my heart would forget how to recognize his voice. The thing no one tells you about starting over is how loud silence is. At first, it was unbearable, no marble floors clicking under his shoes, no distant hum of his espresso machine. No arguments through walls, no fake laughter from business dinners, just quiet, the kind that gets in your bones, the kind that makes you think maybe you don't have a personality unless someone's reacting to it. But then, and I don't even know when it happened, the silence stopped feeling like punishment, it started to feel like space. I got a studio the size of a closet, seriously, I could touch both walls if I stretched my arms out. The shower was basically a faucet in a corner, the heater groaned like it had regrets. The windows barely opened, but it was mine, my mess, my chipped mugs, my thrifted blankets, my ramen packets, my cracked mirror. Nobody curated it. Nobody approved it, nobody picked it for the optics. It wasn't sleek or stunning or Pinterest worthy, but it didn't come with terms and conditions, and I could breathe. I started working at a used bookstore a few blocks down, cash under the table. It smelled like dust and forgotten coffee and ink. The register was older than I was. The owner didn't ask questions, just handed me a key and said, "Don't steal the Bukowski." It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't loud, it wasn't revenge, but every day I stocked shelves and alphabetized romance novels with cracked spines and I felt a little less like a ghost, a little more like a person. Sometimes I caught myself laughing, like, actually laughing, at nothing, at everything. Some customer mispronouncing Nietzsche, some ridiculous tabloid headline. Some memory of Killian being too rich to understand microwaves. And then I'd stop, because that laugh always felt borrowed, like it didn't quite belong to me yet, like it was too early to have one. Healing is weird, it's not cinematic, there's no montage, it's just long and boring and quiet and sometimes it tricks you into thinking you're fine, until something small, a cologne sample in a magazine, a black SUV, a stranger in a navy suit, hits you like a fucking brick, and then you're back, not all the way. Just a toe in the old pain, just enough to remind you it's still there. He gave me nothing, no apology, no peace, no closure, but somehow, he still took everything, my safety, my trust, my stupid fairy tale version of love, and yet, here I am, shelving books, drinking instant coffee, living in 200 square feet of freedom. I still check the mailbox like an idiot, still flinch when the doorbell rings, still half expect him to walk in and ruin it all over again. But he hasn't, and maybe he won't, and maybe that's what hurts the most, that for once, the silence isn't his doing, it's mine, and I don't know if I'm proud of that, or just really, really lonely. It came in one of those plain envelopes, no return address, no markings, just, beige, ordinary, innocuous. I almost threw it out. I thought it was a coupon or a church flyer or some boring thing meant for the last tenant, I let it sit on my counter for a day, 2. I didn't even open it until the third morning when my coffee machine broke and I was too tired to exist. And then I saw the handwriting. His, God. I hate that I recognized it, even in that one stupid sentence, like it was whispered through ink. The contract was fake, but my love for you wasn't. That's it, that's all it said. No greeting, no name, not even his signature, just that. I read it maybe 50 times, maybe more, I don't know. The contract was fake. What does that even mean? Was it fake? Like, never legally binding? Just a prop? Or fake like, it didn't matter? Or fake like I was the only one who believed it meant anything? And the love, no. You don't get to call it love when it starts with lies. You don't get to call it love when it's a game. You don't get to weaponize someone's vulnerability and then later say, oh, but I felt things, too. That's not how love works, right? Right? Except I can still hear his voice in my head, that stupid calm voice, that clipped, perfect tone, saying something like that, writing something like that, believing it. And the worst part, the absolute fucking worst part, is that I believe him. I do, God help me, I do. I believe he meant it, and I also believe he didn't know how to mean it right. Which makes me what? A fool? A victim? An accomplice? I burned the letter. Okay, no, that's a lie. I folded it so tightly it nearly tore. Then I stuffed it in the back of a drawer, under a cracked mug and a broken bracelet and all the other little things I keep swearing I'll throw away but never do. Because the truth is, he lied, and he didn't. And that's what makes it worse. It was a Tuesday, or maybe a Thursday, I don't even know anymore. The days started to bleed into each other like watercolors, soft and dull and mostly harmless. I was stacking a display of secondhand poetry books when the bell over the door didn't ring. That's how I knew. It didn't ring because he didn't come inside. He just stood there, on the other side of the glass. Killian Maddox. Not the man in the tabloids. Not the suit. Not the smirk. Not the billionaire with a backstory and a jet and a plan. Just him, in a hoodie too thin for the wind, hands stuffed in the pocket like he didn't know what to do with them. No entourage, no phone to his ear, no damn umbrella, even though the sky was spitting cold rain. And his eyes, God, his eyes. They looked like mine, empty, haunted, begging for something and knowing he didn't deserve to ask for it. I didn't move. He didn't either. We just stared, like we were both trying to figure out who the hell we were now. I mean, what do you do in that moment? Call the cops? Run into his arms? Throw a book at his head? I think part of me wanted to do all three. Instead, I just stood there, frozen, watching him watch me, waiting for him to do something, say something, be something. But he didn't. He didn't even try the door. He just looked at me like I was something holy and cursed all at once, like he didn't know if he wanted forgiveness or to be punished, like he hadn't slept in weeks, like I was the only thing left he still believed in. And maybe that's what ruined me, not the betrayal, not the lies, not even the love, but the look on his face, the ache in it, the way he stood there in the rain like a man who had finally run out of revenge and found regret instead. I didn't open the door, but I didn't walk away either. I just stood there, staring at the man who wrecked my life, and wondering if he still remembered how to knock. He sat on my floor like he had nowhere else to go, not on the couch, not at the table, just the floor, legs crossed, back against the wall. Like he didn't trust his own spine to hold him up anymore, like if he tried to stand, he'd collapse. I didn't say anything, I just watched him, this man who once towered over boardrooms and ruined people with a glance. Look small, not pitiful, just human. And he said, I was going to ruin you, just like that, no preamble, no soft words, no trying to make it sound better than it was, just the truth, ugly and jagged. I wanted to destroy your father, everything he touched, his name, his legacy, and when I found you, it was perfect, you were perfect. I didn't breathe. I don't even know if I could. He ran a hand through his hair like it physically hurt to keep going. I studied you, Raina, researched, dug into every corner of your life. Where you went after your mom died. How you paid for college. What your dad still owed. He didn't look at me when he said that part. You weren't supposed to be a person to me. You were just a plan, a bullet, pretty packaging for something sharp. I think I wanted to scream, or hit him, or crawl out of my own skin. But he kept talking, like he'd rehearsed it, like this was his punishment, saying it all out loud. And then you smiled at me in that courtroom. You were scared and shaking and still tried to stand between your father and me. You had no idea who I was. But you looked me in the eye like I wasn't a monster. He looked up then, right at me, and his voice cracked. Just once, that's when it started to break. He told me everything, how he forged the contract, how the engagement terms were more for show than anything else, how he leaked photos to the press, how he made sure his ex showed up, how he planted the seed of every story that would make me look like a gold digger. He handed me the blueprint of my own unraveling. And then he said, I didn't come here for forgiveness. I came because I couldn't carry it anymore. Not without giving you the choice to look at me and still walk away. He looked at the floor like it might swallow him. I don't want to be your captor anymore, Reina. I just want to mean something. For real, even if it's too late. And for a second, God, for a second, I remembered what it felt like to believe him. Before the lies, before the folder, before I knew he'd been the architect of my humiliation. He didn't cry, but I think I did, silently, stupidly. Because the truth didn't free me, it just proved what I already knew. He broke me with a plan, but he stayed with a heart. He waited, like some wounded god carved out of guilt and silence, just sitting there with his hands open, like if he moved too fast I'd shatter again. And maybe I would've, a few weeks ago, a few days ago, hell, maybe even an hour ago. But not now, not after hearing it all, not after realizing that the man who had held all the cards, every secret, every dollar, every headline, was now sitting at my feet asking for nothing but a second chance to mean it. And for once, I wasn't the one begging. I stood up. He didn't. I said, if I come back, it won't be because you found me. He blinked, didn't breathe. I swear, it was like the world froze around those 8 words. It'll be because I chose you. I left the bookstore, didn't slam the door, didn't look back. The sun was starting to set, casting long orange shadows over cracked pavement and tired cars and everything real. And it hit me then, I was real. Not someone's puppet, not a pawn in a story I didn't write, just me, just Reina. I didn't have a plan, didn't have a dramatic exit speech or a camera-ready tear sliding down my cheek. I just walked, and it was the most honest thing I'd done in months. I didn't say yes, and I think, for the first time, that meant I was finally free. The studio was small, like, embarrassingly small. The kind of small that made you have to turn sideways to get past the front desk if someone was already standing there. The kind of small where the walls still smelled faintly like the last tenant's overcooked microwave dinners. But it was mine. The lease had my name on it, not his. No hidden clauses, no NDA, no silent assistant watching me sign with a pen that probably cost more than my first year of college. I painted the walls myself, scraped my knuckles raw trying to put up shelves that kept tilting no matter what I did, got paint in my hair. Cried on the floor the first night when I realized I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but at least I was doing it. I hung one of my old pieces in the front window, not because it was good, honestly. It was a mess. Too much red, not enough restraint. But it was the first thing I'd painted after him, after the contract, after I stopped pretending to be someone else's idea of worthy. People came in, slowly, a mother and daughter, a college kid who just wanted a quiet space to sketch. A man in his 70s who sat in the corner every Thursday and drew birds from memory. No one knew who I was, no one whispered about Maddox money or scandal or tabloids. I was just the girl with too much paint on her jeans and a habit of humming when she was nervous. I think that's when I started laughing again, not performatively, not because a camera was flashing, real, stupid, crooked laughter. Sometimes I'd still check the news, see Killian on the cover of something glossy, shaking hands with someone powerful, and it would hurt. God, it would still hurt. Because I remembered the way his hand felt against my back, the way he used to stare at me like I was the center of his war, and then, like I was the center of his peace. But I didn't go back, not then, because I was building something, brick by brick, color by color, and it might have been tiny and wobbly and half-finished, but it was mine. I had to be my own rescue, because no one else was coming, and maybe that was the point. It was supposed to be a quiet night. Just a gallery showing for local artists, nothing dramatic, nothing expensive. String lights, a table of cheap wine, my name printed small on a flyer someone made in Canva. I'd hung 3 pieces, all of them loud, ugly, even. One was just black paint dragged in wide claw marks across a white canvas. Another had the word "enough" scratched in over and over until the paper tore. The last one was a woman with no face, just hands pressed against glass, like she was screaming and no one could hear. People wandered past and made polite comments. Someone asked if I'd ever considered doing commissions. Someone else said, "This one feels raw," and I smiled, nodded, pretended I wasn't vibrating under my skin. and then I felt it. That shift in the air, the way a room gets too quiet all at once, like someone just said God's name out loud. I turned, and there he was, Killian, not in a suit, not with bodyguards, just him, in a plain black coat, his hair a mess like he hadn't slept. He didn't look at the art, he looked at me. I froze, couldn't move, couldn't breathe, and before I could do anything, before I could even decide if I wanted to run, he stepped onto the little platform meant for opening speeches and cleared his throat. "I won't stay long," he said. His voice was hoarse, rough in a way I'd never heard it. "I just need to say something, to her, and to anyone who ever believed in the lie I built." I wanted to disappear, melt into the wall. My chest cracked open like a dropped wine glass. "I ruined her," he said. "I used her to destroy a man I thought deserved it. I wanted revenge so badly I didn't care who I turned into along the way." People stared at me, whispered, but he kept going. "She didn't do anything, not one thing. She was kind, brave. She walked into fire she didn't start and He stopped, swallowed. "I destroyed her to avenge something that wasn't even her fault." I couldn't move. I think I hated him in that moment. And I think I loved him more than I ever had. He didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't beg. He bled, right there in front of everyone, his voice, his shame, his truth, dripping onto the floor like it could stain the whole damn gallery. And I just stood there, silent, frozen, heartbreaking again in real time. Because maybe that's the worst part of love, watching someone bleed and not knowing if you're the wound, or the cure. I didn't talk to him after the gallery, didn't look at him, didn't follow. Didn't breathe until I heard the door click shut behind him. People kept asking if I was okay, like I'd just seen a ghost instead of the man who burned my whole fucking life down in slow motion and then showed up to apologize with words instead of water. I went home, sat on the edge of my bed with my coat still on, stared at my phone until my vision blurred, because I couldn't stop hearing it. I destroyed her to avenge something that wasn't even her fault. I wanted to throw the phone. I wanted to call him and scream until I couldn't anymore. I wanted to rewind every moment we'd ever had and press pause on the part where he first smiled like I mattered. But instead, I opened a new message, typed, "Dinner?" and just stared at it, for hours. I didn't send it, at first. I kept deleting it and retyping it and changing it to, "talk," and then, "never mind," and then nothing at all. I threw my phone under my pillow like it was radioactive. Because what the hell kind of person asks that after everything? What kind of idiot forgets they were a pawn the second they feel seen again? I wanted to be better than this, I wanted to be stronger, but my fingers shook like they already knew the truth my pride wouldn't let me say out loud. I forgave him before I ever hit send, and I think the worst part? The absolute worst part? I don't even know why. I don't know if I miss him, or just miss the version of me that existed when he looked at me like that, like I wasn't a weapon, or a mess. Or a ruined girl carrying her father's sins like bricks in her ribs. I pressed send at 2:46 a.m., didn't wait for a reply, didn't turn my phone over to watch it light up. I just curled into myself, and for the first time in months, I let myself hope. I hate myself for that, but I still did it. I told myself it was just dinner, one dinner, to close the door, to prove I wasn't weak, to stare him in the face and say, "You don't get to haunt me anymore." But when I saw him again, he didn't haunt me. He looked haunted. His eyes didn't have that sharp, surgical coldness anymore. They were soft, unsteady, like he hadn't slept in a year, and maybe it was my silence that kept him up. I hated that part, that some twisted, broken piece of me like knowing he suffered, too. I'm not proud of that. Dinner turned into coffee. Coffee turned into long walks in places we'd never been before, where no one knew our names, no cameras, no contracts, just two people carrying too many invisible things and not enough hands to hold them. We didn't talk about the past, not at first. We talked about nothing, books, rain, why people say, "I'm fine," when they're not. He learned how I like my eggs. I learned he secretly hums under his breath when he's relaxed. This low, quiet sound I used to think meant danger. Now it just meant him. I don't know when I started laughing again. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even real at first. But it was something. He'd make these stupid comments, like, "I'm going to ruin this grilled cheese with too much cheese and there's nothing you can do about it." And I'd roll my eyes and pretend I didn't feel the walls cracking. He didn't touch me for weeks, not once, like he was afraid I'd disappear if he reached for me too soon. And the weird thing is, I think I loved him more for that. I don't know how to explain it. How someone who broke you into pieces can still feel like home. How you can look at the hands that pulled the trigger and want to hold them anyway. Maybe I'm just that fucked up. Maybe we both are. Because somewhere in between the burned toast and early morning silences, We stopped pretending we weren't in love. We didn't say it. Not directly, but I'd catch him watching me like he couldn't believe I was still there, and sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and just listen to him breathe, like I was afraid this was a dream, and morning would take it away. We argued, too. Of course we did. I'd flinch when he moved too fast. He'd shut down when I asked too many questions. We had these moments where everything almost collapsed again. But this time, we didn't run. We just sat in the wreckage together and tried to build something out of it, tried to make it mean something, tried to find a version of us that wasn't built on lies and contracts and blood debts. And God help me. I think we did. We had to burn it all to build something real. And now I'm just sitting in the ashes, trying to believe it's enough, trying to believe we are. It wasn't planned. There was no kneeling, no flowers, no overpriced dinner or staged rooftop moment or any of that Instagram-filtered garbage. It was just a Tuesday, a quiet, dumb, too normal Tuesday. We were in the kitchen. He was barefoot. I had paint on my cheek. He was burning the eggs again because he always forgets to flip them, and I was standing there, watching him mutter, "shit," under his breath and try to scrape the pan like he hadn't been born in a penthouse and probably never touched a stove until recently, and I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the way he looked so real, so mine, or maybe I just broke again in a different way. I said it without thinking, without breathing, just, "Do you want forever?" My voice cracked, like I wasn't even sure I believed the word, forever. What a stupid, cruel thing to ask after everything we did to each other. But he didn't laugh. He didn't hesitate. He didn't try to fix it or clean it up or ask if I was sure. He just whispered, "Yes, that's it." No promises, no vows, just one word, and the kind of silence that fills you instead of empties you. And I believed him. God, that's the part that wrecks me. I believed him, after all the contracts and clause and manipulation and war. After I found my name in his revenge files like I was just another move on a chessboard. After I let him touch me, own me, ruin me, I still stood in that kitchen and offered him forever like it was a clean thing, like I was clean. But I'm not. I'm the girl who said yes to a lie. I'm the girl who knew better and still stayed, who wanted love so badly, she let it cut her open just to feel something, and still, I looked him in the eyes and said forever. I know people will say I'm an idiot, that I'm brainwashed, traumatized, that he used me, that I'm just addicted to the pain. Maybe they're right. But they didn't see him that morning. They didn't see his hands shaking when he handed me my coffee like he thought I'd disappear. They didn't hear the way he said yes, like it cost him everything and still felt like a gift. I was his weapon. Now I'm his home. And I don't know what that says about either of us. I don't know if this is healing or just a more beautiful version of damage. But I meant it. I meant it when I asked. And I think he meant it when he said yes. I hope he did, God. I hope he did. If you're reading this, I don't know what I'm hoping for. I didn't write this for sympathy, or advice, or judgment, even though I know I deserve it. Maybe I just needed to say it, to put it somewhere outside my body, where it can't rot me from the inside anymore. I've rewritten this 100 times, deleted whole paragraphs, rephrased the ugliest parts, lied to myself, then confessed again in the next sentence. I don't know what's real anymore. Was it love? Was it manipulation? Was it both? Is that even possible? God, I don't know. But I know this. He ruined me, and I let him, and I loved him for it. Maybe that makes me weak. Maybe it makes me loyal. Maybe it just makes me human. I've been the girl in the ashes and the girl in the gown. I've been kissed like a queen and used like a pawn. I've run from him. I've chosen him. I've hated him. I've missed him. I said yes when I should have screamed no. I stayed when I should have burned it all down. But I also healed. Quietly. Slowly. In the spaces where he couldn't reach me, and somehow, I still came back. Not because I forgot, but because I remembered everything, and still chose him anyway. That's the part no one understands. If you're reading this, I guess I just needed someone to know. I loved the man who broke me, and I'd do it again. God help me, I'd do it again.